Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Outer Realm with myself, Michelle Desrochers, and Amelia Pisano. We are broadcasting live via International Public Radio on United Public Radio Network and 105.3 FM in New Orleans. This evening's segment is fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee. So thank you, Folgers. We love you a whole lot. Anyway, tonight we welcome Trey Hudson to the show. First time. He's going to be discussing what he calls epicenters of strangeness, UFOs, Skinwalker Ranch. Yes, thank you. Very popular topic nowadays. In order to participate in the show, you're going to have to pop on over to YouTube, go on over to UFO Paranormal Radio, and UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials, I believe, are the live ones tonight. Don't forget to subscribe. We're also going to be airing simultaneously on Twitch and I believe Twitter, and of course our multiple Facebook UPRN pages. You can chat in any of these formats. However, the only way you're going to get a response pretty much immediately is if you tag Amelia in either, well, I would say UFO Paranormal Radio is the one. We can only do one of them at a time. So that one is going to be it, people. So feel free to join in that way.
Especially if you have a question. There's no way I'm going to be able to respond to you on Facebook.
Exactly. So may as well let's get a head start on this bio. Sorry, Trey, we had to shorten your bio because the whole first hour of the show would have been gone.
You could have just stayed home.
Yeah, he was pretty much all there. Yeah.
Yeah. Tonight's guest is the director of the Oxford Paranormal Society and the Anomalous Studies and Observation Group. He's completed his bachelor's degree, awarded with a minor in anthropology in 1987, has an incredible military service career and medals, including Army Superior Unit Award, Global War on Terrorism and Civilian Service Medal. Please welcome our guest, and thank you, sir, for your service, Trey Hudson.
If he's here.
Here.
There he is.
Hi.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service. I was very impressed reading that.
Oh, well, you're quite welcome. What I tell people is I'm an ordinary guy, a very average guy. I've just had some pretty extraordinary events in my life, which are just been kind of interesting, but I'm pretty much just an average fellow.
Wow, average and very versed in many very cool things. So
yeah, average fellows do not win. There's actually more awards. I couldn't list them.
I know.
You have to read his bio.
We could have kept going on and would taken a while to get to the show.
You have to read his
very well versed. It's wonderful.
You have to read Trey's bio on our Facebook group page.
Yes, the whole thing is there.
He's just amazing. Yeah.
So thank you for joining us this evening. What's your story? What are your humble beginnings, and how the heck did we get to this amazing topic?
Oh, well, it's like everything, it starts off as a young child. I was a child of the 70s, and back in the 70s, UFOs and paranormal all really started to capture the imagination of the public, and probably the first thing is, and this is going to sound kind of weird, I'm going to get to it in a roundabout way, is my 5th grade class took a long bus ride from the metro Atlanta area to Washington, D.C. That was a big annual trip that our 5th grade class took in Peachtree Elementary School, just outside of Atlanta. And our parents were admonished, directed, and somewhat encouraged to give us something to keep us occupied during that long bus ride so we wouldn't become, total distractions and little cretins running around the bus. Just being a child of unusual and varied interest, my mother bought me a UFO magazine, and it was a magazine by an outfit called Modern People Press, UFO Report. And I remember reading that magazine while I was riding all the way up to DC. Cool thing is I was actually able to find an original copy of that magazine in mint condition about 2 weeks ago. So
That's so
that
cool.
so that was kind of interesting. So it just really intrigued me. Here were these very campy 1970-ish stories of UFOs and abductions, and a very early article about the Men in Black. And I thought, well, this is just really, really cool. And my father was a traveling contractor, traveled all over the U.S. And late one night, while he was traveling from one of his job sites to another, he heard a interview on a late night radio show, and the man being interviewed was a gentleman by the name of Brad Steiger.
Hmm.
Very famous author.
Yes.
And he was talking about his book, The Gods of Atlantis, and it intrigued my father. He had similar interest as me, and he bought this book and brought it home. He read it. I read it. It was even more just fantastic, amazing, interesting things and theories, UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, and how they're all interrelated. And so later on, in 1977, a TV show came out with the wonderful Leonard Nimoy called In Search Of.
Oh, great show. I remember it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and I was able to buy the complete DVD set. So I'm kind of like reliving my childhood through all of this.
I've never seen
So
it
it.
was
I need to buy it.
fantastic.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
Oh yeah, do yourself a favor.
It's amazing.
It really is. It's it's pure 1970s, which is kind of groovy. I'm going to use a 70s word.
But it's Leonard Nimoy too, though.
I use the word groovy, so I don't know. Yeah.
So I'm dating myself a little bit, but
That's
It's okay. You and me both.
so so I would watch these shows every week, and it was something different. The Bermuda Triangle. It was pyramid power, UFOs, Bigfoot, missing persons, all of this stuff, and I just became really intrigued. By even more so. And in 1978, CBS came out with a television series called Project UFO, which was
I remember. It
yeah. It's like let's hop in the Wayback Machine here and
Oh my
I
God!
feel like I'm missing out on some club.
I used to sit and watch the skies after that show.
Oh yeah, I mean,
oh wow.
Yeah, we did. We would watch the show, and my friends and I would talk about it, and it's like, oh, did you go out after the show, and did you see anything? And it's like, it's Metro Atlanta. We saw a bunch of light pollution, but it was kind of it was kind of fun to to imagine and wonder what this was like, these highly stylized renditions of Project Blue Book investigations. What was the cause of them, and we just discussed this stuff. Well, fast forward, I graduated high school in 1983, and I attended the University of West Georgia. And I don't know if you're familiar with the psychology department there at the University of West Georgia, but it had a gentleman on staff by the name of William Roll, the very famous parapsychologist, was one of the faculty members. And I had an opportunity to study under Dr. Roll. And it was a psychology department that focused on humanistic and transpersonal type psychology. So it was very experiential. So I was exposed to this stuff, and was really interested in it, and had some really neat experiences, and got to meet some very unique and interesting people. And like so many people, here came life, screaming down the tracks like some sort of cruel freight train. And I was branched as a Army intel officer in the U.S. Army Reserves. Went off to intel school, got out, had to get a job. My regular job was as a civilian DOD security specialist, and so I did the 9 to 5 working for the man kind of thing, over and over and over. And in 2008, a local paranormal group, the Oxford Paranormal Society, was looking for a investigator, and I applied and was able to get on with that organization. And the founders decided to take their interest elsewhere, and approached me, and they said, "Hey, how would you like a paranormal investigation group of your own? We will give you this organization," which has been around since 2006. So I became the director of the Oxford Paranormal Society, and I don't know how it is, in your neck of the woods, in your area of operations and interest, but in mid 2000s, let me back up, the mid 2010s, paranormal cases really started to subside. They really started to wane a bit. So we decided to expand our interest out into the out of doors, get people out of their comfort zone. And we started investigating the folklore of a haunted road. And that led into our discovery of the meadow and all the subsequent research and investigations we've done since.
Wow. That's quite a journey. But I do agree with you with, the mid 2010s, where I think traditional investigating definitely did change. I geared myself to more malevolent sort of working one-on-one with people. So that was sort
Right.
of always ongoing, getting into, psychokinesis and
Right,
a
right.
little bit of parapsychology and stuff. So there's always somebody out there that thinks they got something going on that maybe not necessarily what they think it is. So, always a lot of fun. But it wasn't until later years where I think my interest in cryptozoology and, UFOs, things like that,
Right,
came
right.
along. I think those of us in the field do eventually branch out that way, don't we?
I think we have to. It's really, really strange you should mention that because I am primarily a paranormal researcher. That's kind of my thing.
Right.
And over the years, I've had a chance to interact with ufologists, cryptid researchers. I have a pretty well-known cryptid researcher in ASOG, and the more I start to talk to people, they're saying, when we were out, doing cryptid research, we had you know, something dark and shadowy follow us around, or we saw orbs. And I'm like, well, that's like paranormal stuff. Or they'll say,
Mm,
we saw lights in the sky, or we saw, luminescent beings while we were out. And it's like, well, that's more ufology. And the
yeah.
more I peel this onion back, and the more I talk to people and experience things for myself, I have to think they're related somehow. Now, how? I really don't know. There's some really neat theories out there. One of them going all the way back to Brad Steiger. John
Yeah.
Keel had a lot of theories about this. So, I think anybody that's really serious about this and is honest with themselves and humble will find themselves at least sticking their toe in some alternative ponds of different disciplines.
I agree with you. I find in some of or many of the cases that I've worked, I think at least 50% had a connection to extraterrestrials or UFOs.
Yeah, right.
Maybe it's a portal thing. Maybe,
Oh,
yeah. I don't know.
yeah,
I just
yeah.
found it was sort of intriguing. I'm like, what, do they all use the same portals? Like, what is it?
Well,
But that
that's
was my introduction, right?
oh, absolutely. And when in our investigations of the meadow, we've had orbs, we've had uh, beings, that have shown up on our FLIR. We've had
Mm,
mysterious cubes, like a box. Now
wow.
you go back in ufology, and you
Mm,
have the boxes or cubes that were sighted at Skinwalker Ranch. You have the Brazil sightings of something they called chupa chupas, which were flying boxes or cubes, which shot out beams and injured people. I had a chance in June to meet Katie Grabowski, who actually lived at the famous Colorado ranch that preceded Skinwalker Ranch that had cubes and boxes. As recently as this season on the TV show, this Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, they saw a cube or a box or rectangle. So here
yeah.
we are seeing, this same thing. And, you talked about, different perspectives. A ufologist would say, well, that's a UFO. That's a craft. A paranormal researcher might say that's a portal, which, I think possibly that's what this was.
Really?
A cryptid researcher would just say, what the hell? I don't know what's going on. Uh,
We know what the hell that is. I know.
it's not furry and walking around on 2 feet, so I don't have a clue. But it's
Right.
all a matter of perspective.
Right. No, I agree with you. I agree
Hmm.
with you.
Does anything follow these visions of these UFO? Chupa chupa to me is a lollipop. I'm serious. Okay,
Yeah,
chupa chupa
Uh,
chups. It's a lollipop. My daughter loved her whole life. It's the first time I've heard that term. And my daughter's 23. She's been eating them for 20 years. But
20
oh,
years. Yeah.
yeah. Did
Mm.
anything follow with those visions when they saw these cubes of light? did they have any other paranormal activity or UFO activity?
Absolutely. I had a chance
Okay.
to talk to Ryan Skinner, who's has done a tremendous amount of research at Skinwalker Ranch, and we've had some experiences here recently ourselves. And I said, Ryan, did stuff ever follow you home? And he says, absolutely. And we are now starting to see that with some of our experiences as recently as last month, with some of this phenomena actually following people, way away from the epicenter of high strangeness that we've been dealing with.
Okay, let me rephrase that. Did anything else follow while they've seen these? Not follow them home. But in that interaction, did anything else happen?
Yeah, tons of stuff.
Yeah, to be able to understand why that cube was there,
Yeah, actually, on that particular evening when we saw the cube at our particular location, we had beings that we saw on our FLIR. We heard disembodied voices. We actually dispatched a team to where the cube materialized and was detected by our FLIR equipment, and the team members disappeared, poof, out of existence. And we have this on film. And and you go back to somewhere like Skinwalker Ranch, there's a myriad of strange things. They've had reports of creatures coming out of portals or dimensional rifts or whatever.
When he first answered about things following him back from Skinwalker Ranch, I don't think I'd want anything from Skinwalker Ranch following me back. It's just it's a crazy place, There are places like that on the planet, and it makes you wonder, how did they get that way? You've got your own triangle, you've got your own, cryptids galore, you've got all these crazy UFOs, but then there's other like magnetic anomalies, and it's just a mix of everything. How does a place get like that?
Before you answer that, can I just, sorry, because I'm seeing these comments come up like crazy on Facebook.
Okay.
If you're commenting on Facebook and you would like us to read these comments out loud, please join us in the YouTube chat room. You may have missed that at the beginning on YouTube, so that I can let you know if I can put that up or not and when I am going to do that. I have to interact with you that way. I'm not ignoring you. They're just flying by on the computer screen when they're on Facebook.
We have 8 different chats coming up from 8 different locations.
The only way that I can read questions or comments is if you tag me, Amelia Pisano Productions, on YouTube chat, and then I can forward those questions to Trey.
Otherwise, we will do our best.
Otherwise, they're going to fly by because I keep missing them.
Yeah, there's a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Trey, sorry.
No problem. No problem.
How does a place go crazy, like Skinwalker Ranch? What makes this mixture? It's like a stew of just everything.
We really don't know. I've had a chance to talk to. I know. That's what I. That's what
we'll let it go.
We'll
let it go.
Yeah, that's an honest question. People say, what's going on, and I'll say, hell if I know. I'm guessing like everybody else. Anybody that comes up to you and tells you, I have the answer. You got to look at that with a bit of skepticism, because we're really grasping at straws here. All we're doing is we're detecting and experiencing the detritus of whatever's going on. We're picking up the shadows, the remnants of maybe what the real experience is. Right. And as I talk to other researchers, with strange sites like this, there are certain patterns that start to show up. There's a cryptid pattern that seems to be there. Be it a something that looks like a dire wolf or a Sasquatch or something. There seems to be some sort of cryptid nexus. There seems to be some sort of a portal nexus, a portal or a rift or something.
Yeah,
and and of course there's a UFO nexus, and then also you plug in orbs, and orbs have been, you go all the way back in history, Will o' the Wisp, the Fae, ghost lights, all the way up into the 21st century, where you hear people talk about, paranormal orbs or lights in the sky.
They tend to be a bit controversial too, though, right? I think this is where people's minds can run away with them. Like you really have to study orbs to be able to recognize a true orb.
Right.
as opposed
Yeah.
to dust, pollen, moisture,
Right.
thunder, things like that, right?
Yeah. And usually the metric we use is it self-luminating? Is it
Yes.
generating its own light?
Right.
So
Right. Right.
And
I
the
know you make
movement.
mention of Hoyabatsu Forest. Have you ever been?
I have not. I have not. I would love to.
I've
There's
been.
been some. Oh, have you?
I've done.
Well,
I have.
pray tell.
It's everything you think it is.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me, and more. When I went, and maybe because you've been to Skinwalker Ranch, maybe you can fill us in if there's any similarities. It is said to be its own. It has its own Bermuda Triangle. It's named after a shepherd that went missing with probably, a couple of hundred of his flock. And then a 5-year-old girl went missing. She was gone for 5 years, came back after 5 years, still 5 years old, but really not right, not herself, like blank. There's two circles. The one main circle that everybody talks about is
Right.
6 entrances in. Nothing really grows there aside from, weeds, things like that, grass. The trees are all bent out of shape. There's no animals like within any there. I mean, I noticed insects. I didn't even so much as see a squirrel, a chipmunk, any little sign of life, birds, nothing like that. And I'm wondering if it's because of this humming or droning sound that runs in the background. It's like a just like that, which
Yeah.
tells me screams portal. I did not know at the time, but it was under a no-fly zone, which is kind of strange because there's an airport not that far from it. But we came to learn that it is, and it was at the time under a no-fly zone. The locals will warn you to be careful up there because there are things up there. People get nauseous. The experiences that we had that night were unbelievable. So it does not disappoint. So is there any similarities there?
Absolutely. Now,
Yay.
yeah,
Okay, good.
a point of clarification. The site that I wrote the book about is not the Skinwalker Ranch outside
No.
of Vernal, Utah. It is
Yeah.
in the America Southland. I
Right.
have been close to Skinwalker Ranch, but not actually on the ranch.
Right.
But I literally was talking to somebody as recently as yesterday who
Right.
does research on the ranch. So, strangely enough, one of the things we were talking about yesterday was humming or droning. That is
Okay.
a very common thing.
And does the
Uh,
meadow exhibit those same
yes,
characteristics? Oh, okay.
somewhat. We have not heard humming, but we hear almost like a mechanical clicking or ticking that we can't. We have tried to put our finger on it. We've tried to.
It almost sounds like
Think,
grays.
Can I
yeah,
can I be devil's advocate here?
please.
Grays.
With the humming, and you keep saying the word droning, that in itself can even be military flying overhead, drones checking on properties and bases.
Not Hoyabatsu because it's
Not Hoyabatsu,
it's
but I'm
under
talking
no-fly
about
zone.
I'm talking about the American Southlands. I'm not
Yeah,
talking about
Yeah,
Romania. Like
it could
that's a
be.
tough one because you have so many bases in America. That's all I'm saying. Like there is a way, a different way to look at that as well. It doesn't
Good
necessarily
cop, bad
mean
cop. Just
supernatural.
saying.
That's
Good
me.
cop, bad cop.
It's from working in criminal cases. Sorry.
Right.
It's not anything personal. I've been trained to look at things in all aspects. And that's why I have to say unless you can prove that there's nothing in the skies, you can't chalk it up to paranormal or ufology. It can very well be
Right.
anything, especially if there is a base anywhere nearby.
Right.
They
And
will practice their droning skills by sending them all over the place at any time, day or night. So
yeah.
sorry.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Actually, if you go and look at my my Facebook authors page, there's a photograph of me with a drone in Afghanistan with a Predator. So yeah, I get it.
And you would understand what I'm saying because the bases are so close, right?
Absolutely. Now that's a possibility, and you put it out there for what it's worth. You hear a strange sound, you see a strange light. We've seen
Of course.
UAPs, in areas near the meadow. I do go back. I'm also a MUFON field investigator, so I go
Mm.
back and look on Flight 24. My mind just went completely blank. FR 24. Look for all recorded air traffic in the area at that particular time. I look at airports and all of that.
Mhm.
So that's an excellent point, and that's part of
And
being
is
a
it
good researcher.
constant? See, Hoya Bachu is
Yes.
constant. It's
Yeah.
constant. There's no break in like something may be going
Yeah.
nearby, or it just seems to be always running in the background.
So there's not like a Doppler effect to it where it's higher pitched, and as it passes you, it drops pitch.
No,
It's
it's
just
the same
constant.
all the time. You become so
Yeah.
accustomed to it that you're just, after a while, you just don't even notice it. Like you
Wonder.
walk in initially and you're just like, what is that? And then unless you stop and go and listen, go, it's still there.
It's still there,
It
right?
would be interesting to scientifically measure that vibration. and
Well,
just-
the University of Cluj, they do a lot of experiments up there.
yeah,
A lot of people who
definitely.
have filmed there for television, it's actually the university that films on their behalf because it's really like messed
Yeah.
up there.
It'd be
So
interesting to see that.
Right.
To see
And
those results.
you're talking about anomalous sounds, in areas
Yeah.
of high strangeness. Something that, and you can research this in other areas of high strangeness. Not so much with my area, but in other areas, people talk about hearing sounds like a factory underground. That's a very common theme. So, these anomalous, low-pitched sounds, and in our case, a ticking or clicking sound, seems to be pretty common. Something else we've experienced in our particular location is, if you're familiar with Ron Moorhead's Sierra sounds.
yes, I've heard of that.
Okay, we have heard that strange, low, almost unintelligible mumbling, at our site, off in the distance.
Right.
So yeah, there's certainly an
Yeah.
auditory, aspect to all of this. Absolutely.
What about underground bass?
Some people
Maybe you hit on because we're not allowed to know where they all are.
Yeah.
So
You mean
Well-
they've admitted we have them?
yeah, I know, right?
Oh, that's so unlike them.
Yeah. Well, you never know. I mean, it would sure make a lot of sense, wouldn't it? But
Well, it would, and there seems to be, and that's something that we're looking for with different areas of high strangeness are patterns. What patterns do we see? What seems
yes.
to be some sort of commonality, and strange sounds, anomalous sounds. Once again, the cubes, the boxes, orbs, seem to be very common. So, as we study this, maybe we can start coming up with answers. Something we've done, which is really kind of cool, is we have gone into the meadow and done SD sessions, which were very illuminating. To say
Okay.
the
So
least.
can you describe that process?
Yeah. Everybody's familiar with a ghost box. It,
Of course.
scans
Yes.
FM radio stations, takes little fragments, and the theory
Yes.
behind that is, quantum entanglement with the questioner and all of that. So, that's the ghost box. Of course, one of
Yes.
the biggest criticisms of ghost boxes, which albeit is a legitimate criticism, is the questioner will hear what they want to say, what they want to hear. They'll hear a response to their question. So what the SD session does is take a ghost box, plug the output of the ghost box into either sound canceling earbuds or sound canceling headphones, and put them on a receiver on a human being.
Right.
He or she cannot hear what's going on around them. All they hear is the sounds coming from the box.
Right.
And you also blindfold them, so they can't see what's going on around them. And their instructions are merely this: if you
You're removing the other sensories basically and concentrating
Right.
just on. Yeah. Okay.
And their instructions are, if they hear an intelligible word, regardless of what that word is, they are to repeat it out loud. So if they hear the word kumquat, they repeat kumquat or freight train or shoelace or whatever they hear.
Right.
And so we did a SD session, and the entire transcript of the SD session is in the book. And also, if you go to the Oxford Paranormal Society YouTube page, we've got a actual video of the SD session there. And it appears as though we are communicating with some sort of entity. And this entity becomes very agitated, not malicious, but just a little perturbed myth,
Mm-hmm.
if you will, when we start asking about phenomenology of the portals. I'm asking, is there magnetism involved? Is there microgravities? And it just starts becoming very perturbed. Almost like maybe we're asking questions it doesn't want us to ask. It's like not malicious, not mean, but just like, I just don't want to answer those. Go away. So what we try to do is we try to take the best practices out of the different disciplines, be it ufology, paranormal research, and put those in our toolbox, and bring the tools out and try them and see what works in this particular location.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it, because I think when everything is turned on within a person, it's very, very easy to perceive things that aren't there. It's like pareidolia, and just in a different sense, right?
It becomes suggestive when somebody reads off something. Did you hear that? It said demon, and then all of a sudden, everyone in that room is hearing. I know. I agree with that. I love the Estes method.
Yeah, it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. Now, of course, it has its detractors, and that's perfectly cool. I get it. That's fine. But you start putting together, intelligible answers to specific questions, and then you start, crunching the numbers statistically as far as the odds, and it becomes pretty compelling. It certainly does.
It does. I've used, the ghost box. I've had, one designed for me to be really able to fine tune it. You go to this crazy expense and get the portal and like full 9 yards. And then when I'm in Romania, it takes a little hack shack. You get up and you get the best stuff ever. Cost you $20, I'm like, come on.
Right?
It's crazy. I still have my hack shack, that I actually opened up back in,
but they're amazing. You go full throttle on an amazing system, and you get the best stuff out of the $20 piece. There we go, right there.
I've got really well when you have it charged.
But they're easy to travel with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got my Huff box here, that I spent all this money on, and then I got this, $8
I have
box.
It also. I do. Yeah. I have it also. I like it. How do you think? What do you think of it? The portal box.
Oh,
the Huff box.
It's okay. I did. I actually built my own.
Did you really?
And I used the portal. Yeah, I used the Portal Plus app, and then run it through a reverb and a noise filter, and then, it's crazy enough. I've had better luck with my little cheap,
It's
ghost
true.
box.
It's true. Pedro, you're putting up a lot of really interesting things there, and again, all pertaining to Romania. I think you should maybe, with all this information, I think you should just email the show's email at the Outer Realm contact at gmail.com. I'd love to know more about all of this. Vampires having their DNA altered, and Romania, and the connection to the. I said nothing. Okay, well, we'll keep it at that, Pedro. I said nothing.
Fortunately, about 20,000 people just read that, but okay. And then 2 million people heard
not
us.
Everything.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Just saying, Pedro.
Pedro's already
Michelle
there.
just spit that out to over 2 million people right now.
Sorry, Pedro.
Just okay, we haven't given his last name, so we're good. You might not want to comment on Facebook when you're doing that, though.
That's a big smile. I know. He comes in chat a lot. No, seriously though, email me. So, okay. So where do we go from here? You did this experiment. Do you feel that you got somewhere with that, or?
Yeah, I think that we were able to establish, some sort of communication. And there's a theory that I have, and it's as good as anything else. I want you to imagine a neighborhood. Okay, in this neighborhood, you have a sidewalk that runs in front of the various homes, and one of these sections of sidewalk is broken up and broken and torn up pretty bad, and the residents have been complaining about it. Well, earthquake. And so the city sends out a team of workmen to repair this section of sidewalk. So they get there and they take their equipment out, and these workmen are like these entities. Okay, are they? What John Keel called ultra terrestrials. I like to use the term paradimensionals. Are they from another
Mm.
dimension? Are they extraterrestrial? I mean, what are they? Whatever these entities are, they have obviously some sort of tasks to do. And their task may be totally alien to us and we don't understand it. It'd be like a Neanderthal watching a clockmaker. He has no idea of what's going on. But nevertheless, these workmen have a job to do. So they're there repairing the sidewalk, and they pour their concrete, and they're smoothing it out. And this little kid comes along, maybe about 5 years old, kind of a Dennis the Menace kind of character.
Oh,
And he starts,
boy, we love those.
and he's standing there, and he's jabbering at the workmen, asking them asinine questions and just being a pest, a pain in the butt. Now, these workmen don't hate the kid, and they don't wish the kid ill. They just want to do their job and go back home for a nice cold one and a chicken pot pie. So, they have several options. They can ignore the kid. They can try to shoo the kid away. Or maybe if they're feeling friendly, they might interact with the kid until he gets to be too much of a pest, and then they'll try to divert his attention to something else. These entities, be they paradimensional or whatever, are the workmen. And we're the little kids sitting there trying to interject ourselves into their mission or task. And I believe during this SD session, I was the little Dennis the Menace kid asking these innocuous questions. And then I started asking things that were distracting them. And they just, quite frankly, wanted me to get the heck out of there. And so that's what I think that's what's going on. I think we're trying to conceptualize, understand, interact, grasp, rationalize, maybe something that we're the Neanderthals sitting at the side of the watchmaker trying to figure out exactly what's going on.
That's interesting because, and again, this is what Pedro said. He goes, I don't know what's alien anymore. Are they all interdimensional? Do these things come from the sky? Like we're talking about Project UFO, how we sit there, kids, we sit there and just wait for it. Maybe we were looking in the wrong place. Maybe they're here already.
Well, maybe they are standing next to you right now, just a few millimeters out of frequency or out of phase from our reality.
Dimensional,
and they've been
interdimensional,
right? And they've been here all along. Okay, let me throw this one out.
Okay.
On a
Am I ready?
Quantum. Yeah. You'll survive. I haven't lost anybody yet. I promise.
No, Trey. It's my fear of them. When I go like this, it's like, no, they're not beside me. No, they're not. No, it's not.
No. Don't look. No.
Yeah, that's who I am.
Imagine, string theory. So you have reality or the universe in a string, in a linear, cord, if you will. And these strings and realities loop back, and sometimes they touch themselves. So on a quantum level, who or what are you most quantumly entangled with? Yourself. So what if a quantum entanglement of your past self or your future self actually interacting with your present self, and you're the one haunting yourself?
Yeah, that can be a little tricky. Or am I haunting myself? Is it sort of like the theory that the spirit, the soul, the essence can split several times and we can live all these lives simultaneously?
Absolutely.
It's
like, depending on your religious point of view, you hear about the Trinity, God the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Okay, let's take that interpersonally. I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm a son, and I'm a friend. I'm all of these things at once at the same time, but they're distinct, different elements of myself. So human beings are multidimensional beings. We're multidimensional creatures. Quite a few members of my team have trained in remote viewing. Anybody out there is wondering about that? Yes, it does work. We were trained in the military style of coordinate remote viewing, or CRV, and it absolutely is real. It does work. It is quantifiable. There have been scientific studies done by the Stanford Research Institute and many others. So I know
Mm-hmm.
that's real, and I know for a fact that human beings are multidimensional creatures. So it stands to reason that we interact with ourselves maybe on other dimensions that we, as we're trapped in this three-dimensional Euclidean understanding of the universe, maybe don't quite understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can get really entangled. That's for
Yeah,
sure. It
yeah,
really
yeah, no,
can. Some people will say, with some ETs, for example, a lot of people believe that grays are us in the future. And you know
could
how
be.
we talk about the spirit box. When I had one designed at one point, and I said, okay, I want to fool around with this thing. And it had some new settings, and all of a sudden, a voice came through, and I'm like, who are you? Because it just seemed to have a different feel. And it was like, you are us. We're you. I'm like, then it goes, we're one. I'm like, as in one, I go, like, you're me in the future. And they went, correct. I'm like, okay, now you
Yeah,
are like effing me up because
yeah,
I wasn't ready for that answer. Just saying.
yeah, yeah. I actually had a chance back in the '80s to go to a thing with Raymond Moody, Dr. Raymond
Oh,
Moody,
yes,
Mhm.
yes.
and it was a thing hosted by Dr. Roll, and Dr. Moody was channeling, and the entity that he was channeling said
Mm.
something very similar to what you just alluded to. Is he said, "You, me, we,
There we
we're all
go.
there. You go."
So right there, to me, that's interesting. I do believe that. I think I've been in contact with them before. I've had time slips, like
Oh yeah,
slip in time come through the box. Yeah,
sure.
yeah. It just Air Force actually. Whole other story for you sometime. But yeah, I do think that these time slips come through. I do think that these dimensions somehow will cross over one another, and maybe as my producer and friend Joe will say, dimensional bleed through.
Sure,
It's his favorite
sure.
his
I
favorite
know
words to
we
use.
razz him all the
Bleed
time.
throughs. He
We
loves them.
talk ghosts, and he will say, "You mean dimensional bleed through?"
Yeah, he loves that
No,
word.
it's not always the case. Hmm.
Well, and that was something that some of my team members experienced something very similar to that when we discovered, or my team members picked up this cube forming in the meadow, this box. It's just imagine a cube on their FLIR equipment. It was a heat signature. Now, whether they were picking up an actual object or a change in temperature that the object was creating, we don't know. And as we dispatched a team to where this thing was as it dissipated, the team went to this area and their reality changed. They disappeared from our FLIR equipment. We could not see their image anymore, even though it was a winter evening with no foliage. And they described it as stepping into a area that was cold and almost as though they were surrounded by a black velvet curtain, very dark,
Hmm.
very heavy feeling, not oppressive, but just very dense. The ambiance was very dense. When they went
Hmm.
into the area, they did not encounter any brambles, briars, bushes, branches, anything like that. Went in totally unencumbered, unentangled. Yet when they came out, they ran into briars, they ran into bushes, they ran into things that weren't there when they went in. So things had shifted, an
Hmm.
interdimensional shift, just a little bit, to where the reality was just out of phase of that
Hmm.
particular forest meadow for that moment in time.
Does that happen a lot there?
We've had it happen that one time. We
Hmm.
did about a year later. We did find linear, lack of a better term, tracks. But it was almost as though something was dropped into the meadow, traveled a distance, and was lifted out. Two linear parallel tracks, like tire tracks, but not
Hmm.
like tire tracks because the grass and vegetation was pressed over. It wasn't broken. There were small ant hills inside of the tracks that weren't compressed, like crop
Hmm.
circles, except they were
Hmm.
linear. They weren't
Yeah.
circles.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And when my team was investigating this particular incident, they could see a cube or a box about 3 meters, about 3 meters, about 3 meters, once again on their full spectrum camera, except this was during daylight, not visible with the naked eye, only visible on full spectrum. Step to one side of the track line, not visible. Step back into it, visible. And as they got ready to take a photograph, and anybody that's done paranormal or high strangeness research, this has happened. They hit the shutter button and they had forgotten their SD card. They had completely left a piece of equipment back at the camp. And by the time we got back out there, this had dissipated. But I've got affidavits from these gentlemen. So these cubes do seem to be important somehow. They seem to be relevant.
We saw a cube one time come right over the car at a red light. And it was only about like this big. And it just went.
There you go.
We're just like, did everybody see that?
Crazy.
Recently.
Yeah, and there's something about these cubes. The first cube we saw was maybe it was more rectangular than a real cubicle. It was more like a box, but it was like 20 yards by 30 yards by 30 yards. And then the one that we saw, my team member saw in the meadow on full spectrum was about 9 feet by 9 feet by 9 feet. The chuba chubas that are mentioned in Brazil, which literally translates to the sucker, like chupacabra. But
chupa chops, pops. They're lollipops. Chupa
that's right.
Pops. I gotta look and see where they were created first, because they're saying that literally means suckers.
That means sucker. Yeah, chupa chupa.
Yeah, chupa chupa is a lollipop. That's why I'm laughing.
Right. It's an interdimensional lollipop.
My daughter is exceptional. 20 years she's been eating those.
That's
weird. A DMT lollipop, you'll take you all kinds of places.
Oh, well, it not. All right. Good old DMT. Yeah, that'll
God.
There's a journey.
Yeah. So a little ayahuasca there among friends, but
sure.
Oh my God, no.
But these cubes are very strange. And I'm actually supposed to be receiving a copy of the full report done by Dr. Leo Sprinkle of the Colorado ranch back in the 70s. So I'm going to dig down into that and research some of the cubes or boxes they experienced. But that's interesting that you saw a cube. That's very timely. That's interesting.
It went right over the hood of the car, and there was 3 of us in the car. We were just like, but it's sort of like a translucent,
Yes.
Yeah. So we had to do a double take. The driver was just like, what a miss. I caught the tail end of it. I was like, what? He goes, yeah, it's like this cube. I'm like, and he's not a teller of tales at all. So, and he's very logical. So if he says that this is what it was, I have to, I believe it, because like, he just doesn't go looking for things, but you're at a red light and it just goes floating right over the hood. And it's just like, that was a thing. And I caught it just as it went out of my peripheral. So I did not personally see it like in full,
Yeah.
But it goes to show, like, they're just going around. Like, is this going to be, like, are they just like floating around? Like, what attracts them? Where areas do you find them mostly? Because this is like in the middle of a freaking intersection.
Well, there is a theory that's been there that we manifest this stuff. People that have been doing a lot of this, people that do a lot of this research, especially in extreme high strangeness, is we're finding stuff happens all the time to us now. As recently as last month, we went out to the meadow, and we're not able to, go out to the meadow because of just some horribly extreme weather, really bad thunderstorms. Yes. And thought we were skunked. Nothing happened. We weren't able to go out. Everybody's walking around with a long face and disappointed, until one of our team members had her car start locking and unlocking, and the car alarm go off by itself. No explanation. Several of my team members left Saturday night because of the bad weather. Didn't let us do some research. As one guest researcher was driving up to Virginia, his GPS started taking him in circles. He had to keep driving miles out of the way to get
Sounds
back
like
on his route.
so
Interference, yeah.
magnetics or
Something.
is something.
That
Had another.
unlocking and locking of the doors and the
Yes.
alarm going has happened to me several times in my lifetime since
Yep.
they've started using these. I've had that issue since the beginning of power locks.
Yep.
Sometimes I wonder if it's our energy though.
Could be, could be. We could be attractors ourselves. Had that same evening, another team member, her GPS kept taking her back to her starting point, just in circles. Had another team member who actually was almost back to her home state. She lives several states away. She had her car completely die. All electronics in her vehicle died, and it limped over to the side of the road and then regained its operations about 40
You
minutes
usually
later.
get that when there's a craft in the area.
Or if
Yes.
somebody's hacked your system. Bad cop.
Yeah.
Bad
If
cop.
someone's hacked your system.
Shut up, Amelia.
hacked-
You're no fun.
But it's happened to law enforcement.
Yep.
You're buzzkilling
who-
Trey and I.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm
no, I know.
sorry. I'm trying
Well,
to just,
I know, I'm
put
playing with
some
you.
perspective. I
Yeah,
know
but-
you are.
But take that one step further. The phenomenology that law enforcement uses is a directed EMP pulse weapon. Okay, and
I'm not saying law enforcement use it. I'm talking about a hacker on the other end who's probably a little bit further ahead of law enforcement with their experience. I know for a fact they have people that I know personally as detectives have had their cars hacked while they were driving them by suspects. We're talking about serious people. That's why I'm saying you just never know. It's like the sleight of hand. Was it ET or was somebody hacking someone and it just happened to hit? I have to look at it all sides.
I think if it was like a specific individual, when you're looking at the different team members having different experiences and you're in an area and of investigations that have, again, I always look for magnetics because it's quite normal to have different, magnetic and under the ground at some point, but ET doesn't even have to be like UAPs or UFOs. Don't even have to be right over the road. I mean, they could be quite a ways up.
Right.
Like I could see a specific individual being targeted, but you're talking like that this has happened to various people.
Well, and it gets even stranger is that the team member that had her car disabled by whatever, mechanical failure, a directed EMP from a hacker, some other, strange, paradimensional, whatever. After she got home,
remote viewer.
She's and
no, I'm not saying she is. I mean, it could have happened through a remote viewer. Yeah.
She noticed on her phone there was a photograph on her phone of a field with several power lines running across it. That photograph had all EXIF data stripped off of it. The only thing that photograph had was a timestamp. She is a nurse and works night shift, and that phone was 18 inches from her head when that photograph was supposedly taken.
Crazy.
She sent the photograph out to us. We looked at it, couldn't figure out what was going on. Her mom said, I know what that photograph is. That's a photograph from a real estate listing for a piece of property that's for sale near you. And you go to the website for that listing and that photograph is there. But she's not interested in buying property and she's never been there, nor has she taken that photograph. So what does this mean? What?
A message maybe to her?
Perhaps. You go back and you look through the literature, take Bud Hopkins, go back and read some of his stuff. What happens sometimes when people experience their vehicle dying? There's something under the veneer of our recollection that's actually much more interesting. So something that I'm trying to do is, and I've had several members have had crazy experiences with weird radiation spikes, is I do some regressive hypnosis, to actually see if we can peel this veneer away and see maybe if there's something else going on just below the surface.
Oh, that's a good idea. It's a good way of approaching it because it's so hard. When I'm speaking, I'm not trying to pick or anything. I'm just trying to look at it the way when I say something, people look at me and say, well, how can that even be possible? Because I don't say anything is not real or can't be possible, because I talk to dead people. Like, I've got to be one of the craziest people in my group of friends, or the strangest or the most different, however you want to look at it. And I think that you always have to look at it all ways. But like Michelle said, when it's the entire team, it's kind of hard to dismiss those occurrences
Yeah.
as being, I don't believe in coincidences.
I
I
was
always
going to
believe
say, I don't believe in
there's a
coincidences.
message with everything, but
Yeah.
sometimes things do happen to happen at the same time as something else. And I don't see it as a coincidence. I just see it as it's unfortunate. It's an event. It inspired with cars. That's a tough one. That's
That
a
is
really tough one. Anything
and
mechanical, it's hard to explain.
it is, and I respect your approach. One of the things that I've done
Thank
over
you.
my federal career is investigations. I sometimes get national security investigations and other stuff, and so I look at things like that. My people that have read my book said, it reads like it was written by a government guy. And I'm like, well, yeah, it was.
Hello.
Well, you
So
kind of are one. Yeah.
it's very matter of fact. But
Yes.
with my background in humanistic psychology and transpersonal psychology, I'm very much of an experientialist. The experience has value. So I try to keep one foot in both of those, sometimes competing and sometimes diverse worldviews of facts, data, what's the nuts and bolts of it, but also what's the personal human experience. And when you start putting those things together and looking at them over those two grids, things get really interesting and really quite odd.
I do believe that there are locations and beings out there that will reach out. I've worked in some extraordinary locations throughout the world. I've been to some amazing places worldwide. And if you're meant to know something, or if something is trying to get your attention, whether it be the energy of a location or the energy of a being, or if you are meant to know, if you are meant to be there, they or it always seems to find a way.
Yes.
Yes. And with yourself being, okay, no, I'm government, I'm military. It's like you have a certain frame of mind. Your mind works a certain way. You're conditioned, through your career to work a certain way. So when all of this starts happening, how does that feel for you? Do you go into full logic mode, or you kind of go, shit, that was really cool?
Yes and no. My background, going all the way back from when I was commissioned as an Army Intel guy in 1987. But even before that, I was that geeky kid in the 70s, reading the UFO magazines. So, I try to look at it from both perspectives. Data is important. We're starting to see some commonalities in not only our location, but some other locations. We've talked about the cubes ad nauseum. That's there.
Right.
We're also seeing little tiny micro radiation spikes when some of this stuff happens. And when I say tiny, normal background radiation, let's say 0.0 microsieverts per hour. That's just a very basic background radiation. But when we're asking questions during SD session, it jumps up to 0.12 microsieverts per hour. We had a situation where we had a gentleman manning base camp in the middle of the forest. I mean, in the middle of nowhere, on a moonless night, and the road in this nature preserve that was adjacent to our campsite, a craft passed by. And I use the word craft because he didn't see it, but he heard something pass by. This area is so dark that you would not be able to drive a vehicle down this road at night without the most advanced Generation 3 military night vision equipment. You just couldn't do it. Strangely enough, when this craft passed by him, 4 or 5 feet over the ground, and he heard it pass by, we run Geiger counters, and his Geiger counter spiked up to 0.66 microsieverts per hour. So there was these little tiny spikes of radiation. So, we're trying to track that down, and I'm starting to hear that some of the other strange sites are seeing these little tiny spikes of radiation too. What does that mean? I don't know. We're continuing to investigate it.
Well, I mean, I guess it's one of those situations where you have to look at, everything that happens on that property.
Yep.
I can, let's use Hoyabatu just for shits and giggles because I've been there, so I can comment somewhat. But I mean, you have the locals who are always seeing, and everybody's got a camera phone now, right? So it's a little bit
Right.
easier, but they're always taking photos and they see lights in the skies. They see things hovering over the mountain. It's under a no-fly zone for a reason, I'm thinking. There's the folklore of the Bermuda Triangle. There's a folklore of a potential
Right.
portal. There's cryptid stuff. Like it's got that whole mix. So when you start looking at everything, again, that constant humming, droning sort of sound, when you start piecing everything together, it's like, okay, now what could cause the things that you're talking about? So if there's a
Right.
base there or a portal or a craft, could that create little tidbits of radiation like that?
It could be.
I would think a
It's
craft would.
Yeah, craft wood. And are these, some sort of residue of a process? There's a
Okay.
process. The workmen working on the sidewalk, the residue of their
Right.
process might be spilt concrete. The residue of the process of whatever these paradimensionals are doing might be radiation. It might just be, radiation or
Yeah.
exhaust from whatever equipment they're using.
Right.
And you mentioned something that I wanted to circle back to, is you mentioned folklore.
Mm-hmm.
Is what got us to this site was regional folklore. And I mentioned it earlier this evening, as I originally was searching for a haunted road that locals had
Yes.
talked about. And, it was one of those things where, the locals like, don't you dare go down that road. There are haints down there, that kind of thing.
Right.
Don't venture down there after dark because something bad or malevolent will happen.
And every piece of
And
folklore starts with a little grain of an eyewitness account of some sort.
absolutely. And
Fact.
it's people trying to pound experiences into the round experiences into the square hole of their worldview. And folklore is a mechanism they do that with. And so, what I always tell other researchers and investigators, follow the folklore. This place that we're researching, you start peeling back the folklore, tons of cryptid sightings, very, very rich history of cryptid sightings. Go to some of the databases, go to, BFRO and some of these other groups, go to some of the public MUFON databases, started finding out that this area has a very rich UFO history. Go back to Native American folklore. About the first 25% of my book is Native American folklore and history of this area, going back, to the Native American First Nations folks, all the way up into strange occurrences that people have reported, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, all the way up into the 80s. And you start looking at this stuff as an analyst. I put on my Army Intel analyst hat, and back in the 80s, we didn't have all this whiz-bang stuff. We had a paper map, and we had acetate plastic overlays and a pen, and we would mark, enemy positions are here, and that's how we would do it. So if you take a map and a piece of plastic overlay, and you say, okay, I'm going to use a brown marker, I'm going to mark all the Bigfoot sightings. Then you take a new piece of plastic, you say, I'm going to use a yellow marker, I'm going to mark all the ghost sightings.
Right.
And then take another piece of paper and use it blue and say, okay, I'm going to mark all the UFO sightings. And you lay all three of these on top of one another, you're going to start to see patterns.
Right.
And these patterns are very telling. And something that you mentioned of the Romanian forest is the missing girl that disappeared.
And
strangely
reappeared.
enough,
The shepherd never reappeared with his 200 flock, but the missing girl appeared 5 years later, still the same age.
And I'm sure when the shepherd disappeared, everybody said, "What the flock?" That's
right? Where'd he go? I know.
But
what the flock? I like it.
Is our location is not too far from one of David Paulides' missing 401 clusters, so that's another thing to plug into the mix.
So that's a whole other mix right there.
Yeah.
Really had a question?
Yeah, but Zachman asked a question, but he's referring to the Skinwalker Ranch.
Okay, ask. I don't know if
Well, okay. Sorry, now something just let me go back up.
Yeah.
Skinwalker Ranch is near the Ute Native American Reservation. Has the local tribe provided accounts, both past and present, related to the area?
Now, in all fair, I am not an expert on Skinwalker Ranch. I do know people that were, and I was just talking to a gentleman as recently as yesterday that is, and absolutely, the Ute tribe has a very rich history of high strangeness in that area. Absolutely.
Have they provided stories to them? That's what he's asking. Have they provided accounts to them personally?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. There you go, Zach.
I think along with past owners as well. Like it's pretty documented. Location. Pedro had made an interesting comment actually about natural portals. There are natural portals all over the place where you can go to other planets or locations where you don't age. This girl definitely did not age, but she came back and her mind wasn't there. She came back with her little doll, same little doll, and it's just like there was no expression. There was nothing was connecting with her again.
That's so scary.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's temporal shifts, time running in different relativistic ways.
Paradoxes.
Is not unknown. We had an experience where we were in the meadow, and we had set up several teams in the meadow itself, and there's a ridge to the south of us. And we were going to have a team member work his way across the top of the ridge, drop down in the west end of the meadow, and then work his way past, picking up the teams as he retreated. And we have radio communications and all of that, so we keep up with everybody. Right. And so as the gentleman came down off of the ridge into the west end of the meadow, my team that was in the middle took their FLIRs, and they're watching him. They see his heat signature go into the meadow. And as they're watching his heat signature walk towards them, his heat signature went from a man-shaped, signature to a sphere or an orb, and traveled several hundred meters in a matter of seconds, and then reform back into a man-shaped heat signature. They got on their radio and they said, "Bob, are you okay?" And they're watching through their equipment, and they see this man-shaped heat signature bring a radio up to its mouth and say, "I'm fine. Why are you asking?" So it was him.
Oh my God.
He did turn into.
Yeah.
And so to give you a background about the gentleman that observed this is one gentleman was a graduate of the Georgia Institute of Technology, very highly respected university, has a master's degree in public administration, is a lifelong paramedic, very down to earth, feet on the ground kind of guy. The other gentleman has dual degrees from Georgia Tech in philosophy and physics. He's a physicist, also served as a special operations soldier in the U.S. Army's Ranger Regiment. Very down to earth guys, and they saw this. And where it gets really weird is the sphere traveled several hundred meters in a few seconds. The fastest runner that you saw in the Olympics this past week could not travel over this terrain in that speed. It's impossible. From the perspective of the gentleman that was observed, all he was doing is walking across the meadow. He didn't detect anything different. So whose time was shifted? Was it the subject or the observers? There was some sort of time shifted.
Yeah.
And we argue about that even to this day, as like, "Oh, no, you were the one who had a time shift." No, screw you. You were the one. And so, these areas have some sort of temporal anomalies where time runs differently, at specific at specific times or specific moments. There was an experiment done at the Mesa Verde cliff dwellings using I'm not sure the exact phenomenology. I believe it was using Doppler shift with lasers, and time actually ran a little bit differently at Mesa Verde than it did at the control using the control group. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. So you mentioned time and temporal shifts and portals changing, the way time
Yeah.
flows. Absolutely. And the little girl, it sounds like, experienced that, but on a macro scale, of years, not moments or
Yeah.
seconds.
And it totally changed her, like
Oh,
from a molecular standpoint. Like she just was not the same. Um, yeah. Some locations will do that. The energy is just so much, it's just
yeah.
so too much. People get sick, people get scratched, people get thrown, people get it's just what comes through these locations. You mentioned Colorado.
Hmm.
Can you give us a bit of background on that? And for those who
Uh,
don't know, this isn't like Skywalker Ranch, is it? Not Skywalker. What is it called?
Stardust
With all
Ranch.
the alien Stardust. Yes,
Yeah, yeah, that's in Arizona. This was in
Arizona. So different one again.
This was
Okay.
in Colorado. And
Okay.
if you read the book Hunt for the Skinwalker by George Knapp,
Yes. Yes.
in the first chapter or two, they refer to a Colorado ranch
Mhm.
where s- almost exactly the same circumstances as Skinwalker Ranch happened, but this was back in, I believe, the 70s.
Hmm.
Uh, what's really interesting, like I said, is I met an individual in June that lived at that ranch. And we were at a convention, and when she started hearing about some of my experiences, she made a beeline and said, "I wanted to talk to you and tell you about the boxes, the cubes that we experienced at this ranch." You can go to, I think it was IFRO, I believe was the early UFO organization, had some articles in their journal about this Colorado ranch. It was investigated by Dr. Leo Sprinkle back in the
Hmm.
70s or 80s. And it was, they had cryptids, they had disembodied voices, they had
Hmm.
cubes, boxes showing up, with different kind of flashing lights. They had
God,
UFOs. They had pretty much,
yeah, it
all,
almost sounds ET,
yeah,
the cubes.
yeah. They do sound very, ET, and I'm using quotes because whatever an ET is, but it does have that kind of
I
flavor,
like
that,
that.
that kind
I'm
of
going to
flavor
steal that
to
from
it.
you, Trey.
What's that?
Sorry,
Air quotes?
I'm gonna steal it. No, when you said it does sound like ET, but whatever ET is, quote unquote Trey Hudson. I'm
Air
stealing that.
quotes.
I love it.
Yeah,
I'm
it's.
stealing it.
I mean, yeah,
Yes.
in this business, we have to be careful of labels. Putting things in labels.
Absolutely.
So,
Don't we though?
Absolutely.
so,
Yes, we
so.
do.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. So that's interesting. It's just like this location that had all this going on before paranormal television,
Oh yeah,
Mm.
absolutely.
that popularized, you know, Stardust Ranch, Skinwalker Ranch. This is something that's now that you've mentioned it, how many people are going to be, oh, where is that place? Because all these shows that run out of locations, like, oh my gosh, here's a new one. So is this something, I mean, I would imagine this location is still having these issues. Is this someplace that you get to go and investigate?
No, it's
The closed
moved
off?
on. And other than that, very detailed investigation by Dr. Sprinkle and his associates. I don't know if any follow-on's been done to it. Um,
Right.
and it might be the owners don't want it, or it could be that the phenomena
Yeah.
has changed. That's something we've experienced, is the phenomena changes.
Mm-hmm.
Which
We've
is why you sort of need to keep working on
yeah,
it, though.
and keep an open mind, and
Hmm.
be very cognizant that if you're looking for the same thing, you might get a wild pitch out of left field. That's what's happened to us. Is we've had I'll give you a case that happened to us. We went to the meadow, and we were using Dr. Greer's CE5 protocol.
Hmm.
A lot of my team members are remote viewers, so we were able to get into that state, project intention. Hey, we're down here. Come visit us. Everything's cool. Nothing happened.
Right.
Just nothing happened. We were bummed out, so we ended up just sitting around the field, just talking and enjoying each other's company, which has tremendous value in and of itself. So it was a
Hmm.
success as far as spending an evening with good friends. Came back, uh, kind of disappointed. Everybody turned in that Saturday night, getting up to pack our camp for Sunday morning so everybody could go off to their respective places. Had one of my team members come up to me. This team member is an engineer, got his degree from the U.S. Air Force Academy, spent several years in U.S. Air Force Special Operations, and is now a consultant, international consultant in his chosen field. His name is Tony. Very dialed in guy, is also a trained remote viewer. And he said, Trey, I need to tell you what happened to me last night. I'm like, yeah, I know, we sat out in the field and just, shot the bull. He goes, no. After that, he said, I woke up about 4:30 in the morning, and I had these two words just seared into my brain. And the words were Knox Magbee, phonetically spelled Nox Magbee, Knox Magbee. And he said, and I just thought that was weird. And I went back to sleep, and he said again at 6:30, I woke again, and these same two words were seared into my brain. Do they mean anything to you? And I'm like, I'm not sure. Let me write it down phonetically and let me do a little research. So, not thinking anything would come of it, I did a little research the next week, and I found out that the word Nox, Nox, is the Roman goddess of the night, who was derived from the Greek goddess Nyx, Nyx. So Nox means goddess of the night. Okay, that's interesting. So what does Magbee mean? So that turned out to be a little more difficult. And I found in the original poem of Beowulf, written in Old English about 500 AD, the word Magba, which means kindred or children. Okay. Now, the Romans left Great Britain about 500 AD. So it's reasonable that the word Nox, Roman goddess, and Magba would be contemporaneous, that the people during that time would be familiar with the Roman gods. So the two words could be used together. You put them together and you get children of the night goddess. What do we have that are like children that come to people at night, that are very small in stature with enlarged heads, that come to people in the middle of the night?
Wow.
Bam. Little grays.
Wow.
I'll give you a hint. There's one on the front of Whitley Strieber's book, Communion.
Oh, yeah. Little grays.
And 3 feet tall.
Right. And this download came to Tony the night we did the CE5 protocol, which we thought was uneventful. So this place is continuously throwing us wild pitches from left field.
Wow.
Amelia, station ID.
I've got to slip in here, Trey. I'm sorry.
This is a technical part. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. We get scolded otherwise. Go ahead.
Right now, you are listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers and myself, Amelia Pisano. And tonight's special guest is Trey Hudson. And we're talking everything from skinwalkers to UFOs to UAPs and ETs. What are those, really? So I told you I was going to steal it. So if you're in New Orleans, you're listening live on 105.3 FM. And the rest of you are either watching us on YouTube or Twitch or listening to us on our many, many different streaming sites, including Facebook. We are UFO Paranormal Radio, and I will always call us United Public Radio, UPRN Talk Radio, as well as Gods and Extraterrestrials. I'll never get that one right. That's all I'm saying. But tonight and every night that we are here on the Outer Realm, we are so grateful to be fully sponsored by the amazing people at Folgers Coffee. Thank you so much, Folgers, for that. That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
Thank
I've got
you.
a fan on, so I'm very fidgety because the hairs and the flyaways are driving
No,
me.
those little tiny hairs. I could strangle
yeah.
myself with my own hair.
I'm dying here because we're in a heat wave in Southern Ontario. Like it's literally in the 80s late at night. So it's really, really hot. But sorry if I'm so distracting there.
Hot
my
flash.
Gosh.
So, so basically it's always delivering, it's always changing, it's always giving you information. So that's pretty incredible.
It is. And shameless book plug, the Meadow Project Explorations of the South Skinwalker Range. Thank you very much. I got to pay the bills too. I'm kidding.
That's okay. We'll give you
like
do that.
You'll have all kinds of time to promote yourself before.
I'm kidding. But
don't. It's okay.
We have just this all these weird experiences, and what I have to do is be very careful and not box myself into expecting one type of phenomena. You have to
Mhm.
kind of, when the phenomena comes knocking, you need to be ready to open the door and let it in, because you really don't know what it's going to be with this particular location.
Mhm. And what, I mean, I thought this was pretty impressive. What's been the one that's caught you off guard the most?
The one that caught us off guard the most was the mysterious businesswoman of the forest.
Okay, that's definitely different. What's that
Out of
all
left,
about?
like I said, out of left field.
Yeah.
And this story gets strange, as
Okay.
if it all isn't
Because it's
very
not
odd.
strange enough, right?
Yeah, the evening that we were doing our investigation of the portals where our team members went into and came out of, uh, we had gathered back together, pulled all the teams in, and we were trying to decide: do we need to continue to investigate, because that particular night we have a portal or some sort of temporal rift. We've seen beings on our FLIR, energy beings that did not correspond with the known location of any team members. And so we had all this really crazy stuff going on, and we were trying to make a decision: do we continue to investigate, or do we go back, do a after action briefing, an AAR, after action review, on video, and try to make sure we recount these events while they're fresh on our minds? And we were
Mhm.
debating this back and forth. And as the team leader, I said, we're going to go back and do a debrief. We want to capture this data, as much as we can while it's fresh. And my base camp operator, like I said, we always have radio communications. We have a radio net that we check into every hour. Everybody knows where everybody is. And my base camp operator came over the radio and he said, Trey, there's somebody here you need to see. And I'm like, okay, Glenn, I'll see you when I get back to camp. We're getting ready to. He goes, no, it's not me. It's somebody else. Like, what the heck is that? Somebody else.
What?
Here we are. It's February, and this is, 2200 hours at night, 10:30 or 22:30 at night, 10:30 at night, in the wintertime, in the middle of nowhere, literally in the middle of nowhere, and there's somebody at the camp. So I go back, and much to my surprise, what do I see? I see a businesswoman waiting for me back at camp, wearing loafers, slacks, a blouse, and a blazer. And this businesswoman makes a beeline straight towards me, and she starts telling me this story of this deserted country road in the nature preserve that has a dwelling at the end of it. And at the end of this road, the dwelling houses something that she calls a family of monkey bears.
Is this woman real or is she a ghost? I have to ask.
I was going to ask her, is this a woman in black experience and you're not realizing it?
Yeah.
Now you're tracking. You're tracking.
Okay.
So
once in a while, once in a while.
She is continuously wanting us to drop what we were doing and go and investigate these monkey bears. Now I know what a gummy bear is. It's,
right.
But I don't know what a monkey bear is. And so
wait.
she is continuously, just trying to inject herself into our operation and as a distractor. And she's making small talk with me, and she's acting very strange, very off, if you will. So odd, so off that during her conversation with us, she stops her conversation, moves about 20 yards away from the group, still within the light of our lanterns, squats down and urinates in front of us.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just
So
this is a little WIB. Sorry.
And it's like, this is crazy. This is insane.
What do you mean? This isn't normal human behavior, Trey? Am I exhibiting something incorrect?
I don't know how humans act where you're at, but in Alabama, they don't act like that, where I'm from. But it was very odd. So, and then she strikes up a conversation with me. She says, where did you go to school? What university did you go to? And I'm like, just trying to get her to go away. I say, University of West Georgia. Well, what did you study there? She asked. And I said, my degree's in psychology with a minor in anthropology. She goes, That's strange. I have a degree in psychology from there too. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. You're echoing, you're parroting what I tell you. So I'm going to catch her, right? I'm going to trick her up. Said, who are some of your favorite professors that you worked with there? And no kidding, she started naming professors that I knew personally, people I knew. So
Wow.
I'm like, okay, that's very odd.
You now
And we were,
have my attention.
and so we started getting kind of weirded out by this. And we were able to finally get her to leave. She finally went away. And you hit on something. You said a WIB, not dressed for the occasion, does not understand social cueing. Like when we started saying, you have a good night, goodbye, the social cueing is this interaction is over, you need to leave. Doesn't understand how humans interact with one another, i.e., we don't urinate in front of each other unless we're really, really good friends, which we weren't.
Yeah, it's
And
not even then.
and then number 4 is they are distractors. They try to distract you. And John Keel's wonderful book, The Mothman Prophecies, has myriad accounts of men in black trying to distract people.
Yes.
So this woman gave a name. We were able to do a little digging around on the internet, and we found a woman in this general area that matched her location and matched her reported profession. Now, her profession is of such that her behavior was so odd, it could possibly call into question her licensure. She was acting that weird. So I'm like, okay, so I have three options here. It was something else masquerading as a woman. It was a actual woman being controlled by something else, or it was a businesswoman who just happened to be in the forest in the middle of the night that went to the same university as me, urinating in front of me, having the absolute worst night of her life. Those are my 3 options.
Yeah, I think 1 and 2 kind of can blend in.
Moment.
So
your first theory and your second theory really could be one theory.
Could be. So this is where it starts to get even weirder. I had a message. Weirder.
All right.
I had a message pop up on my Facebook account from a psychotherapist in Istanbul, Turkey, that wanted to talk to me. And he actually wanted to talk to me about, he also has a psychology degree from the University of West Georgia. So a little bit of synchronicity going on there. And he wanted to talk to me about the Carrollton vortex, which was a very area of high strangeness near the area where I went to school. And during the conversation, I said, hey, I ran into an individual named Jane Doe who claimed she went to the University of West Georgia. Does that ring any bell? And he automatically responded back, I plead the 5th. We need to talk.
And I will not urinate in front of you. Don't worry. It's like,
that
is just bizarre. I'm sorry.
What happened from there? Did you get in touch with him and come together and discuss this? Okay, are we privy to more?
We've had several Zoom meetings, and this is a real person, and he knows her. And says that the person that I was describing is totally out of character for her. And he goes, would you mind if I talk to her? I said, by all means, reassure her I am not interested in outing her or displaying her name or where she lives or anything like this. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this.
So somebody else is basically in the driver's seat then.
Well, there's a 15-minute window of a little bit of weirdo psycho going on here. You want to make sure she's okay too if she's a friend.
Right. Yeah. And so he, being a psychotherapist, he reached out to her. And she said, yes, that was me. I remember that evening. And I was driving around after a stressful day at work to decompress. Okay, that's kind of an odd place to be driving around, but I'll buy it. And she goes, they seemed like they were covering up something they didn't want to share with me. Once again, that was right. We weren't going to share our operation with her. But she goes, there was nothing odd about the interaction.
Yeah.
He goes, you didn't act weird or strange? She goes, no, they seemed kind of weirded out, but no, there was nothing strange about it at all. So
Wow.
it's all,
That's
Is
just
she aware that she just dropped her pants and
yeah. And, he said that, your actions really freak these people out. And these are, the background of some of these people, they're used to very stressful, situations of conflict, and they don't get rattled, and you rattled them.
right.
And so, I asked, my new friend here in Turkey, I said, if she would like to talk to me, I would love to speak to her. I would love to do an interview. I am not interested in embarrassing anybody or, anything like that, but I'm trying to find out what's going on. And his thoughts are that something was controlling her.
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's, I mean, possession.
Yeah.
I guess it's a matter of who stepped into the driver's seat.
Right. And you said, what was the thing that, was the strangest
sure.
and the most unnerving? That's it.
I could see that. I could completely see that. I think I would be left a little gobsmacked with that personally.
It was so weird and so odd and so unnerving. My friend who I mentioned was a U.S. Army Ranger. I went to him and I said, Tim, do you have your sidearm with you? Because, we were literally in the middle of nowhere. And he goes, yeah, of course. And I said, well, I've got mine too. I said, we're going to back off about 50 meters out of camp and we're going to walk around the perimeter in the dark to make sure she didn't leave anything behind for us.
Go ahead, Trey, please.
Oh, no, I'm just saying. And there, we found nothing. There were no stragglers, no commandos hiding in the dusky darkness waiting for us, or grays, ready to probe us.
Yeah.
It was, quiet the rest of the evening, but it unnerved us to the point that I felt like we needed to do a little perimeter patrol to make sure that we were safe.
Absolutely, because here you are working on something you're not discussing, and how else better to get into your field where you're operating rather than, show up as someone that you already know and most likely would talk to and bring in. But, women in black aren't only showing up as themselves. They can go in and transform or slip right in and come through that way as well.
So do reptilians.
So do reptilians.
Just saying.
So demonic entities. Yeah, but
and they do shapeshift.
Demonic would never do anything like that because there's nothing to gain from them from there.
With reptilians, it's not so much that they shapeshift, but they, as it is that they project how they want you to see them.
But she has a recollection of it, though. So she was physically there. She just doesn't have.
So that's more
she just doesn't have. No, she doesn't have
step in.
I feel like it was a step in that maybe this is why it sounds so ET to me, because there's parts of her memory that are erased, obviously, with the urinating. Maybe, this is something
or maybe not.
He thought was normal, or maybe not.
This is okay.
Let's hope that was something that was not normal for her.
When you gotta go, you gotta go.
Yeah, but I don't usually drop my pants in front of everybody.
Wow. So, as we're slowly, nearing, we've got about 15 minutes. So what's next for you guys, for yourself and your team with this?
A couple of things are next. We will continue to investigate this site as long as we're able to.
Right.
Sadly, what has happened to some of these sites of high strangeness that are owned by governmental entities, be they state, city, or federal, is as soon as people start getting too close to the truth, they start closing sections off. There's a area in Georgia in the War Woman Nature Preserve. Areas have been closed off to that. Parts of Uwharrie National Forest, are closed off. So, we're hoping that by not disclosing the exact location, it doesn't pop up on the radar and it gets shut off to us. So as long as we're able to investigate it, we will. Now, this area is, about a quarter of a mile from the closest road. So we're able to, we would pack our stuff in there even if they did close it off.
Right.
put the stuff on our back. We've done it before. It's not a problem. So we will continue to investigate. The phenomenology will lead where the investigation goes. So we're starting to see some patterns. We're also starting to see, like we talked about, some really weird things thrown out of, coming out of left field. So, we have to be prepared for that. We have to be very specific on the type of equipment we carry because we just can't take the kitchen sink with us. So we're starting to narrow down some of our equipment. We've purchased some dual use equipment. We have psionics, digital night vision cameras, which are very nice pieces of equipment.
Nice.
We have small FLIR. We've invested in some Gen 3 night vision equipment.
The Army can't just like throw you a few here and there.
Well, no, I wish they could. Yeah, that's called
remember that
larceny.
one I used. Remember that one I used in Afghanistan? You don't need it anymore, do you?
Yeah, no.
It's old.
Those night vision glasses are nice.
So that's next. We're going to continue to investigate it as long as we can. Unfortunately, we've lost some of our members. We had a key member pass away.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I'm sorry.
And so we continuing on as best we can. And some of the things that we're going to experiment with further is, of course, hypnotic regression. I think that there is some things that have gone on by our team members, and then looking at my experiences in this area prior to me investigating it, just from backpacking in this area, I think I've got some things that are screen memories, very weird happenings that are just right on the edge of weirdness that might be screen memory. So I think that will yield very interesting results. We are looking at possibly getting the story out to a larger audience through different mediums, television, movies, things like that. It's not my story. It's the world story. Okay. Everybody needs to know this. It belongs to the world. So we're get the information out there so people can make up their own mind. An experiment that we're trying to get funded is use electromagnetic stimulation of frontal brain lobes. Is actually go out into the meadow.
That'll be tough.
Run. There's actually a field deployable piece of equipment that'll do that. And it shoots electromagnetic pulses across your temporal lobes. It creates a altered state of consciousness and awareness, and then do that in conjunction with the Estes protocol.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that sort of technology. That's a tough one. It's one of those things where you want to get a volunteer, and all the crazies go, I'll do it. You're like,
pick the team member you pick the team member you don't really like.
Exactly.
I do it for you.
Nobody
else. Yeah.
A plane
I would do it for you, Trey.
A plane ticket is in the mail. You just have to sign a waiver. That's. But
unfortunately, Biden's not letting me in. Otherwise, I would do it for you.
Hey, don't blame me. But
no, I'm not blaming you at all.
Okay, so that's interesting. And what do you hope to find with that? What do you hope to find or accomplish with that?
Is what I hope is by altering the state of awareness, state of consciousness of the receiver. And there's a whole lot of theories that the psychonauts through DMT, ayahuasca, all
mushrooms,
these altered states of consciousness actually open up doorways, and they open up, even more importantly, perception. So if being the nice, clean, law-abiding folks that we are, if we can do that through a means other than chemically, with electromagnetic stimulation, which we can control, by the way, we can control that empirically, is open up an altered state of consciousness, and the SD session might yield much better, clearer, and more coherent results. So that's and that's a theory. I don't know. It might be completely uneventful, but then again,
there was, if you remember watching the old Paranormal State show, Bill Chappell did a piece of equipment. I own it. I've never used it. I used to do events, which were basically, people would say they want to know if it exists. This was one of those people. It was equipment. It's called the God helmet.
That's exactly the piece of equipment. That's what I'm looking into. That piece of equipment.
I own it.
Oh, really?
I own it. I've never used it.
What are your
Again,
rental
all my
fees?
team members be like, "Oh no, pick us, pick us!" I'm like, "Oh, y'all new? What's wrong with you? Get fry your brain cells," But I have to sign more waivers to get that into the country.
Yeah. Oh,
But I
yeah.
do own it, and it's all these
Yeah.
electrodes, and it just
Yep.
yeah, yes,
Yep. And
and their thing was, "Oh, it'll make you think you're psychic." They're like, "What?"
I am psychic. Why would I have to think I'm psychic?
No, but I guess for some people who aren't intuitive, it gives you this
Oh.
sensation, right, of what's
But
around you. This is what you're trying to tap into this, and then while you're combining the experiments,
so why haven't you put that thing on my head yet?
too much hair.
Too much.
No,
You don't. She doesn't want to fry
I've
my
never
brain
used it.
cells.
I've
No,
never
I
used
know.
it. I have a huge arsenal of stuff I have never used, and that's just one of them. I just couldn't bring myself to strap it on to one of my team members. I just didn't feel
Wow.
at the time that everyone was experienced enough, right? So
yeah. You're right. I mean,
Let's-
yeah. Me.
oh, I know.
The waivers coming over your fax machine.
I
as you
Here
don't.
it comes.
I don't need the helmet.
Here it comes.
I get really far out there, but it would be cool to experience it without having to take a drug. I'm just because I've never done the ayahuasca stuff. I've never done none
No.
of that because I'm fortunate to have the gifts of mediumship.
Mhm.
So yeah. Even
Zach,
Zach, man,
man.
I'll be your guinea pig, Michelle.
And
We'll put on
and I don't know
Joe
if y'all,
first.
what I'm hoping is, I've done some sensory deprivation stuff, in the samadhi
Right.
tank, and
Right.
that's very, mind opening, very
Mhm.
very interesting. So, I'm wondering, is maybe that's the next step? Is that the next logical, trek? Step down the trail, of discovery in this place, and we won't know until we try it.
You know
I
what?
agree with you. I think you're stepping into, opening up that dimension, or sort of merging them together, with this whole perception thing. I think that experiment would do it. I do.
Yeah.
Knowing how the
Yeah.
equipment works, I think that would work for you, for what you're trying to do. Sounds
I think so,
fascinating.
too.
Trey, if you ever need a more than willing participant as who's a medium, I'm right here.
Well, the problem is, as you can tell, we're all larges, in my team. So a medium might not be.
So this is the point of the show where you get to promote. Tell us about your books,
Yeah.
your website, your
Yeah.
social media, whatever you want everybody to know.
Sure. The cool thing is the book is on Amazon. It's the Meadow Project Exploration into the South Skinwalker Ranch. We have it on hardback, softback, ebook, and audiobook. Personally, I think the ebook is a heck of a deal. I think it's $5.
Wow.
Give it a shot. There is
Wow.
tons of stuff in there I have not been able to cover. Everybody that's read the book, has said their mind is absolutely blown. Where do you find me? I hide a lot. Good luck. No, I'm kidding. The best way to find me is you can go to Facebook and go to Trey Hudson -author. That's my Facebook page.
Mhm.
And also the Oxford Paranormal Society has a Facebook page, and I post stuff on there. On Amazon, just type in my name, Trey Hudson. The book will pop up. It's been doing very well. I'm trying to get some speaking gigs, around. I was at the Mega UFO conference in Laughlin in June. So that's also my lecture is, I think, available. I think Bob Brown is selling that for purchase on DVD. If you're interested in seeing the videos and some of the stuff I talked about, that's there too.
That's
I'm
fantastic.
so impressed that you have an audiobook available because I think that's like the big up and coming trend right now is people listening to these audiobooks, when they're going back and forth to work and things like that, and maybe transmitting on trains or whatever. I think it's fantastic that you have that option. I'm seeing a really, really big rise in that. Smart move.
Yeah, I've got
And
a good publisher.
And of course, we're anxious, to hear how your experiments go. So maybe as you delve a little deeper and such, maybe connect up with us again and maybe do this again. It'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Show up in my camp wearing business attire. I guarantee you'll get my attention.
I promise
that. Yeah, we won't.
not
pee
to
on this.
squat. We're
We
both
won't
going to
do
say at
that.
the same time.
No.
We finish each other's sentences.
That's
Again,
it.
I want to reiterate, thank you so much for your service and thank you
Yes.
for sharing with us tonight. You are a complete joy and thank you for letting me pick. I love that.
Well, thank you. It's been an honor and a privilege to spend the evening with two lovely ladies.
Aw.
Thank you, Trey.
And for
Thank
us,
you.
thank you.
You have a good night. Thank you again.
Okay.
All the
Bye-bye.
best with that research. Well, everyone, we've come to another fantastic segment here of the Outer Realm. Thanks to everybody who tuned in, everybody who's been in chat, and of course, Joe Montaldo, our producer. And a huge thank you to the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who, again, fully sponsor not just tonight's segment, but all of our segments. So thank you. On a sadder note, big RIP to Paul Hellyer, who is a former Canadian defense minister, who's a huge advocate on UFO disclosure. He was disclosing before everyone was disclosing. So he's just passed away. So we'd like to wish or, send our condolences from us here at the Outer Realm and, of course, United Public Radio to his friends and his family. Now, remember to stop by the International Public Radio UFO Paranormal Radio YouTube channel. Subscribe. While you're there, please head over to the Outer Realm on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. If you'd like to get a message over to us, please go to the Outer Realm Contact at gmail.com. That's the Outer Realm Contact at gmail.com. Tomorrow night, we welcome back Carl Cookson, Hamilton White, under the new show name, The Lost Relic Hunters. And they'll be back to the show. And of course, you don't want to miss these guys. They're always up to some sort of shenanigans. We don't know what kind of shenanigans we're getting into. But all we know is you don't want to miss the fun. So join us tomorrow evening. Thank you and good night.